Hello there, this is of course Nick Dutch and this is Scary Story Time. This was sent through to me by one of my subscribers for me to read out here. So here we go. It says, I feel the need to share with you the experiences I've had after watching one of your more recent videos at the time of this message. A real ghost story, genuine haunting. So that you may share them with your viewers if you decide to do so. I'll try to keep it as condensed as possible. I know it's a pain in the arse to read the whole lot, but your time will be greatly appreciated. My first ever encounter with a strange experience happened when I was 3 years old. It was at the time my grandfather was in hospital after having a heart attack and suffering from other complications. After we had visited my grandfather, myself, my mother, and 3 of her sisters went back to my nan's house. At the time, I was too young to realise what was really going on with my grandfather being in hospital, and was confused as to why my mother and her sisters were, at the time, sad. I used to play in the parlour or back room and just do my own thing like any noisy 3-year-old would probably do. I remember leaving the parlour and making my way to the bottom of the stairs where I used to play. I remember seeing a tall figure, standing at the top of the stairs. At first I tried to figure out who it was, but the figure appeared to be pitch black in complexion, with no apparent facial features or hair or clothes, just a pitch black figure. I'm getting goosebumps while typing this. And I couldn't tell if it was facing me or away from me. I called to it, "Who's that?" It didn't reply. I ran into the living room and asked my grandmother who the man upstairs was. Well, that's the thing. Everyone who was in the house at the time was in the living room talking to my nan about my grandfather being in hospital. She replied, "There isn't anyone upstairs," and that was that. Needless to say, I was reluctant to go back out of the living room and stayed next to my mother until we got home. Time moved on. As did I. When I left secondary school, I got into some bother with a local individual. It was around this time I was asked to help my auntie renovate her house with my uncle and a small workforce in the southern part of France. Having some experiences in construction work, I jumped at the chance. It was at this point things started to get a little weird. The house itself, I was told, is nearly 400 years old. I had been told that the ghost of an old woman was currently at the house, along with a poltergeist which apparently was long gone before I got there. As the renovation went on, we tore down the old plaster off the walls in one of the downstairs bedrooms, and there were loads of little holes all over the room in the walls, almost the size of golf balls. In one of these holes I found a rusted knife. This made no sense to me at all. I asked my uncle about this and he didn't know what to make of it. While working in the house, I constantly felt like I was being watched. And I mean constantly. When I say being watched, I felt as if someone was standing directly behind me, about 2 inches away from the back of my head, just staring from behind. I didn't make much of it, as I thought dwelling on it would just make my mind play tricks on me. As I was working in what would later become my baby cousin's bedroom, I was taking wallpaper off the walls and the staring feeling came back. This time it was extremely more potent than the first few times I had experienced it. I turned around and said, "What do you want? Just get lost." I was the only person in the room, and thinking about it now, I feel like a fool. But the thing that struck me most was, as I turned around to continue, I heard a very loud whisper in my left ear, which clearly said, "Yes!" At that point, I just walked out of the house and convinced myself I didn't really just hear that. As the nights went on, I began exploring more into meditation and astral projection and actually started to watch some of your videos. which was around 2010. I'll have to stop here for now. It's 12:16 a.m. and I'd just like to say thanks again if you managed to find time to read this heap of junk. Well, I don't think that story was a heap of junk. I think that was a very good, very well expressed story. I think you've covered an awful lot, and I think that your writing style is very good. I would even suggest you actually writing supernatural stories at some point later in your life if you wanted to, because you seem to have a feeling for it. And I would also say that some of those experiences do correlate with some of mine as well. So I think that what you were going through, what you're experiencing there, could well have been something genuine. Look after yourself and sleep tight. Mwahahahaha.